I met John last year in person because if you don't already know, our first baby came out last year, our first book, and Padita Jafari from Jafari Law had us in California for this beautiful book party, and John was there. He came all the way from Georgia to California. And so we got to talk. He got to meet some of our California clients. And then we all had dinner together, and he is just lovely, and his best friend is lovely, and we had such an awesome time. And I'm hoping that he could get back on now because I don't see him. Let's see. Let me see if he's back yet. But like I started saying earlier, all right, I see you, John. Hopefully you'll get this. We want to talk about John's experience with something that a lot of you have to deal with as well, or a lot of people in our community, which we consider a form of domestic violence. And that's when, after a separation between parents, one parent tries to turn the kids against the other parent, almost as punishment. And we know when you're dealing with a narcissistic ex, it's sort of like this, you're with me or against me. And these kids, whatever age they are often put in something called loyalty conflicts, where they have to choose. So John, can you see me now?
No, but we ought to run with this. I'll tell you what, it's driven me nuts. I was on a podcast last week, and I had similar issues and never did really get it resolved, and got three quarters of the way through the podcast, and it just shut down. And so let's go with this, and I can hear you, so that'll have to be enough, my friend.
I know. I've been through the same thing. All right. Anyway, so you and I have been on together like a few times, and I think the last time was maybe before the holidays in the fall, and talking about what it's like for people whose kids have been turned against them almost as punishment, where there is not a history of abuse or neglect, but it often occurs during or after a divorce, when you're dealing with a toxic spouse. They want to take everything, the money and the kids and your peace. And so
they do.
Yeah. So you've experienced that. Do you want to talk a little bit about who you are, your experience, and how things sound like they're starting to turn around?
Yes. And little by little. So John McKenney, and with Male Victims of Female Narcissists, probably a lot of you guys see me there. So I was married for 27 years. And this whole parental alienation thing, I personally believe starts far sooner than you might think.
Yep.
So for me personally, I think there were issues even when my kids were little children. And maybe some people who are married to a narcissist or have been married to a narcissist have felt this, but there was always a power struggle where the children were concerned. Mm-hmm. So even when they were little and I wanted to go help out, it was no, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. And what I realized along the way, and even much later, is that a narcissist's parental goals are very different from yours. A good parent, a healthy parent, is all about building a child who's independent and functional and healthy and a productive citizen, somebody who works well, somebody who can take care of themselves, somebody who can provide for themselves and is, for lack of a better word, independent. Mm-hmm. And their goal is different. Their goal is to create dependence on them as opposed to independence with the child, independence in the child. So I think right from the beginning, I could even see that she didn't want help with things because she wanted to control it, and she was trying even in the younger years to create this dependence on her. And I didn't understand back then either. We all kind of discovered what narcissistic personality disorder was like along the way. So you don't really have a frame of reference for this kind of thing early on, and it begins, and then as it follows into childhood and as it follows into teenagehood, what you'll find is that you become more marginalized as a victim. And for me personally, even when we had family things, I felt like I was always on the outside. Mm-hmm. I felt like information traveled to me dead last in the family, whether it was even from my parents or sisters or whatever it might be. Information started to travel to me last, and that's because she was controlling the situation and controlling the conversation. We talk about triangulation a lot, where instead of you going directly to the person, like to your children, having conversation goes to the narcissist and then back to the kids, or to the narcissist and to your parents, or through the narcissist and then to your sisters, and they are in such way becoming the focal point of all the conversation.
John, that sounds like gatekeeping. Gatekeeping. Yeah, like they have to pass through the gate.
It really is. And you know, where there was some discipline for me that kind of came face to face, what I realized, and it was, again, it's so slow. This happens over such a long period of time, these dynamics, that you don't realize what's taking place until you're kind of in trouble. I posted a meme one time that says, you know, narcissistic abuse is like the frog in the kettle, only you're the frog. And that's the truth. The heat's turned up gradually and over time, and I didn't realize this was taking place. What I did know was that I felt like an outsider in my own home. I felt, and in my own family particularly, like they were this tribe, and that I was kind of always on the outside of this thing. And in fact, my therapist kind of described it that way as well. She had said, you know, when you're as insecure as a narcissist really is, you try and grab the people around you to be safe. And only in my situation, it was my children. And I think you probably see this dynamic from my conversation and from research with other people. I think you see this dynamic with the kids more in covert narcissists than you do probably in malignant narcissists.
John, with your ex, let me ask you a question. Did you find that she also infantilized them, like treated them? We talked about how our goals are for our kids to be independent, but narcissists or toxic people often want their kids to be dependent. And so what they do often is they treat them like they're more babies, like they treat them like they're younger than they are, and they'll do stuff for them. They'll be like, I can take care of that for you. I noticed in my own situation with my ex, not with him, but with a member of his family, a woman who had a son. Every time I would ask her son a question when we'd all be at dinner together, she would answer for him. She didn't let him speak for himself. And when he grew up, he was silent.
100%. In fact, I would put my son in exactly that category. True story, like for his 18th birthday, he wanted to go skydiving. So I had some sky miles and I flew his cousin in, and his cousin here very close. And we took them out to go skydiving, parachute jumping, tandem, you jump with the guy. And we waited for a really long time. And there was this little snack bar there, excuse me. And I watched kind of what he was doing, and he was, you know, having this conversation with her offline, very, very quietly, whispering in her ear. And he was basically saying, "Oh, I want one of the candy bars up there. Will you go talk to the person to go tell them that I want that?" And I saw this and I go, "No, you were 18 freaking years old. Go have that conversation yourself." And he was completely put out that I would say such things. But it's one of those moments where you realize this has happened in the past.
Right.
You know, frog in the kettle. I've woken up for a second, and my 18-year-old son should be able to go have a conversation with somebody he doesn't know at a little snack bar and say, "Yeah, I'd like the Hershey's, please," and hand them $1.50 or now $10 for a Hershey bar, and walk away with the thing. These are like basic life skills. And I don't know whether we've discussed this or not, but there is a hereditary nature, I personally believe, to narcissistic personality disorder. And I believe, looking back, her mother was one too. And same situation with her brother. Her brother hardly spoke, even as an adult. I mean, I probably didn't say 10 sentences to him in the 27 years I was married to her.
Yeah.
And he didn't speak. And she used to talk about how he was so afraid as a child to go up and make his own order
Mhm.
at McDonald's or the fast food restaurant. So he would whisper it in her ear, and then she would say it. And I'm like, what he needed was parenting.
Right,
And
right.
and
I mean, one of
continue this into the same kind of relationship with my child and with my children, and most notably with him, believe it or not, of the others.
Yeah.
And
You know,
this has,
John, one of the,
yeah,
sorry to
no,
interrupt you,
do
but
it.
you and I both talk a lot, and I'm like, you're making
We
me think
do.
of things and I
So
want to say
feel
something. And
free
you
to
can't
shut
see
me.
me.
Feel free to shut me up anytime you have permission
Okay.
and stuff. We're friends.
Yes. So, you know, with our clients who are often accused of parental alienation, we think it's really important that they understand what it means. And there's several factors. And I've interviewed Dr. Amy Baker,
Yeah.
who's got like 20 factors, and we condensed them into 6. But one of them that's a very common trait that parents who do this kind of behavior, who turn kids against another parent and do start, as you're right, they start long before the relationship ends with the other parent, is this grooming behavior. But one of the qualities and an alienation factor is fostering dependence in a child.
Yeah.
And so what you're describing and then what I described, that starts very, very early, even while the parents are still together. So things like that, not letting a child answer for themselves, encouraging them, be like, I'll take care of it for you. I know my partner Chris's ex used to lay her son's clothes on the bed till they were well into middle school, and I was like, what? Like
Yeah.
they should be able to pick their outfits and their clothing.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting with my ex, like when the kids were younger and I think easier to control, um, even when they were little, like 3 years old, she had them cleaning bathrooms and stuff. And you know, it was very industrious and I thought really interesting when they were younger that she would do some of this stuff. And then as they got older and into middle school and high school, all of that ended. I mean, done. And it was like when she could control them when they were little, there was kind of no need to go manipulate them like that because they
Right.
were reasonably dependent on her. And as they got older, it got worse and worse. I remember she'd kind of gone away for it was a weekend. Her mother got very, very sick, and she wanted to go see her. So she went and did that. I managed the house, and I told the kids. I said, "Okay, after dinner, one of you's going to help cook. One was already out of the house, I think, at the time. One of you's going to help cook. One's going to set the table. One's going to clean the table and do the dishes." And you know, in a day, I had them doing all of this stuff. And she goes, "Well, how do you get them to do that?" And I go, "I'm the parent. I just asked them, and we kind of set this up, and it would be good for them to be able to go do this kind of stuff." And she said, "Oh yes, I would absolutely love that." When she got back, she had it dismantled in a day.
Right.
Because again, she had to provide all of that. These were things that were central to her, and she had to create this dependence on the children, and ultimately it wound up, you know, not helping them whatsoever.
Yeah.
And
Let me
it,
ask you another thing, and I'm going to use this based on another alienation factor, which I think occurs long before separation. And that's where they will minimize your authority or undermine your role as a parent, where it's like, well, I'm the main parent
yeah,
and you're just here too, but I know more and I can handle everything. I mean, that
mhm,
sounds like exactly your situation where you were
yeah,
just on the periphery and they, you know, she was doing everything for them. And this is like, I know, you know, here we're talking about a situation where it's a woman, but certainly we see both sides where
100%.
one parent takes control. It's like, I can do this myself. The kids need me. Like I'm the one they look to, and you're just kind of out of the picture.
Yeah, and men, by and large, and we're not necessarily, you know, pigeonholing one or the other. You know, men tend to be more narcissistic or malignant narcissists, and coverts kind of fly under the radar with this stuff. So I didn't ever see aggression in it. And I always call it back chatting. You know, this is what I always think was happening,
Yeah.
right? Very passive aggressively, and she would even admit she's the passive aggressive queen, always back chatting in their ears, telling them stuff. And I'd come back and it was like there'd been a conversation and could feel disrespect or something like that, but I couldn't put the pieces together. And I credited her wrongly, um, with more maturity than she delivered to the situation. I thought she was team marriage first, and you know, and then Team Kids second. But what I realized as time went on, it was Team Tribe, and that was them, and I was kind of on the outside in the periphery. And her goal was to prioritize them over me, and did in all of those things. And it came with disrespect.
I think
That I
she
got back from the
prioritized
kids.
herself, John. I don't think she
Oh,
prioritized the kids.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It really was more about her needs than what the children need. That's a really good correction. So there were a couple of times I can remember just out and out disrespect to my face, and more so as the relationship went on and got kind of more heated. There were a couple of situations in front of the children where she was, I mean, just right up here in my face screaming at me, and I'd try to walk around her and she'd block my path, and it was as aggressive as she'd gotten. And with coverts, I think they couch it more in this whole kind of idea of protection. We talk about the idea of narcissistic supply.
Mm-hmm.
And in malignant narcissists, I think you often see a narcissist go and have another relationship. They'll cheat on a spouse. They'll have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and it'll be behind the scenes. And then they'll kind of blame you for it in some kind of way if you get discovered. Where the covert narcissist, I think, flies under the radar, and the kids become their supply.
Mm-hmm.
The kids become what they most wrap themselves up in, because covert narcissists don't want to be discovered by anybody. So if they did something like that, they know in the back of their minds they'd be discovered. But they can couch this kind of unhealthy relationship with their children as being a very, very good parent. And to the outside of the world, they look industrious, and they look like they're taking care of everything, and they look like they're the best parent. And then behind the scenes, I'm going, okay, my 22-year-old shouldn't have his head in my wife's lap while they're watching football.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy. I'm going, this is disgusting, you know?
Yeah.
And
there's like a creepy factor as they get older.
Is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've heard the term emotional incest.
100%.
You know, my son is reading the book by Neil Strauss. It's called The Truth. And then he had written another called The Game that he got a lot of heat for. But in The Truth, I don't want to give it away, but just know, like, part of the root of so many addictions and problems that he has kind of traced back to some very unhealthy relationships with his mother,
I would bet.
And the boundaries that were crossed that he never considered or realized until he was an adult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And these are the kinds of things I think you're waiting for. You know, when your children are adults, and all of when I waited till my kids were, or till my kids were all out of the house to divorce intentionally. I wanted to give them as healthy an experience as I could possibly give them, and the last couple of years were probably train wreckish one way or the other. But I wanted to wait till then, and because you're in a situation where you have this covert who's kind of flying under the radar and everything. Not only are you frog in the kettle, but your kids are frog in the kettle too. And they don't. Some of this stuff starts like back as early as them being infants and kind of raised in it. This is all they know, and to expect to have a conversation with your child, and that would just go, oh, I get it. That's just not going to happen. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to undo their whole parenting life in one moment and in one conversation, and you can't do it. In fact, if you try, you'll wind up looking more narcissistic than them, because they've got this attachment to the narcissist anyways. Anything you say comes back through you. Triangulation winds up working two ways after you're divorced. Any information that goes through your kids goes back to your ex as well. It's still triangulating. They've just become the flying monkeys and are reporting back, and they're kind of stalking you through your kids. So it's a really unhealthy dynamic, and you have to wait till your kids kind of figure some of this stuff out.
Yeah, what you just mentioned, what you just mentioned is yet another alienation factor, and that's encouraging the kids at whatever age to betray your trust.
No question.
And that's where kids often become little spies, and they don't really realize it, but they're put in a situation where they are rewarded for bringing back this information, even subtly. Like, for example, when a kid comes back to the other parent's house, a lot of times we know that abusive people grill the kids. What'd you do? Did you have fun? Who was there? Blah, blah, blah. And the kids, they have to say it. We've had clients who have told us their kids were spying on them and then reported back to the other parent. And then when the client said, why would you do such a thing to her daughter? The daughter said, that's the only time that the other parent pays attention to me, is when I'm reporting about you. When I'm saying bad things about you, that's when they makes them happy. And imagine little kids in this where they're figuring out, like, this is what I have to do to walk on eggshells with one of my parents.
Yeah.
I have to say bad things. I can't show affection towards my other parent, or my original parent, my preferred parent will get angry. So I can't, I have to, like, always watch myself.
Yeah, there's this kind of thing. In fact, my daughter said something like this. One of my kids that I think is kind of figuring this stuff out. It winds up being factions and teams, right? It's team narcissist, and the kids become the flying monkeys, and they become the supply, and they feel a couple of things. One thing they feel is they feel a need, I think personally, to protect the narcissist, which is bizarre. Narcissists underneath it all, I think, are very vulnerable people, and for whatever reason, when all this is done, and maybe it's because they paint the victim as the aggressor in all of this too, they feel this need to protect. And the other part of it is, in doing so, in the kinds of things you describe, if they do anything other than talk bad about the victim, they're kicked off the team.
That's right.
And permanently.
Because it's all, like I said, it's all or nothing. You're with me or you're against me. So kids
you'll
learn.
never go back. You never go. Once you're ostracized from that team, you never go back. And you know, my daughter said this was so fascinating. She was going through some hardship, and she said, I know if I don't do things exactly the way she says, my relationship with her will never be the same again.
Right.
Like she figured that out. She has to.
And how old is she?
23.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how they learn to survive. And when you say it's hard to understand, for me, it's, you know, because we've been doing so much research on that, it makes sense, because the kids know on some level what parent loved them conditionally. And so they know, if I cross this person, then they're not going to want me anymore. They're not going to love me. But it's all unconscious. So they just know, like, I better behave, or else I don't want to make this person mad, or I don't want this person to just discard me like they did my other parent.
Correct.
So they'll align more because they want to stay safe.
Yes. There's also this, you know, if while you're still in the relationship, not only is there this creation of dependence, you know, they want the child to be dependent on them, but there's also a betrayal of trust with respect to the marriage, or if they're, you know, it's a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship and there's a child, there's a betrayal of the primary marital or primary relationship in the family as well. So what I discovered also, and again over time, was that my ex was talking to the kids about things that she and I would discuss that were really only for our ears.
Right.
Because there was a fair amount of tension between us, particularly the last 5 or 6 years, and fighting and things like that. And what I discovered was that she's constantly doing this, defining it. The kids might ask questions, and because she's triangulated them well, they're talking to her, they're not talking to me. So she lent her spin on absolutely everything that happened. Your dad's this, and your dad's this. Your dad might be far from God. Your dad is just mean to me. He's just angry to me constantly. I don't know why he yells at me like this. And over time, the kids go, my God, he's just a horrible human being, you know, and they trust their mother implicitly. They build trust, which is why triangulation happens. And you wind up getting alienated also through this betrayal of marital trust along the way. there's
Yeah,
a,
John, pause for
yeah,
1 second. I want to say something about
yeah,
that. Regarding the trust, one other thing that's happening is when someone like your ex was communicating to kids while they're still kids, they're not adults.
yes,
There's a different dynamic there. When she's talking to the kids about you, on some level, she's teaching the kids that she trusts them like adults. Like, you're
no
so
question.
mature that I'm going to talk to you about it. And so that's also like a reward to the kids. Like,
Yep.
mom can talk, mom treats me like her friend. Therefore, I must be really mature. And that makes them feel good. I mean, all this like weird stuff goes on, but
Mhm.
that's also rewarding them. That's,
Yep.
and when you say something like, I want to keep you out of it, they might interpret as dad's, there's a contrast. Dad's acting like I'm immature and I can't handle it, without realizing like, this is none of your business. You go live your lives as kids.
Mhm.
You shouldn't be part of our
Absolutely.
marriage problem.
Absolutely. In fact, I mean, Lisa, I still don't talk to my kids about her. Like,
Yeah.
as far as I mean, they're adults now and they could understand it all. And when I divorced, I had a kind of very macro level conversation, bird's eye conversation on why I was divorcing, because I felt like they deserved some kind of explanation. Um, but as far as details and going back and she did this and she did that, I don't have those conversations now.
Right.
Why? Because it's none of their business. That
Exactly.
relationship and what happened there is between me and her, and does not include my children. I don't ever want them to feel that way. So I refuse to badmouth. I refuse to passive aggressively do anything. I refuse to have conversation with them about her whatsoever. Because I don't want to play that game, because that's what a good parent does. And I'm a parent first, and I'm a friend second. And that's where these boundaries, you talk about emotional incest and things like that, this confiding in, excuse me, this having conversation about the other parent to the children is the primary means of emotional incest. And you'll find these things surfacing when something comes up that you're unaware of, or that your kids will ask you about something and you go, where did you get that from?
Right.
My youngest at one time said to me, I have some classic cars, and they're cheapies, they're not expensive cars. Um, and they're old VWs. And one day my daughter had come to me and she goes, you know what? She goes, I'm tired of you mismanaging our family's money.
Well, okay, that already, like the language,
Yeah,
what kids says mismanaging our
our,
money. That's
our
not a
family's money. And I go, what in the heck do you mean? I'm the one that makes the money here. And
right.
she goes, well, you see those cars in the driveway? She goes, you spend all our family's money on your cars. So,
This,
so can you believe this?
yeah,
So,
there's a word for this, John. It's called a borrowed scenario. It's when they're talking about something that that's not their life or their language,
no,
and they're basically parroting what they've heard.
100%. And I sat her down and I said, okay, let's go through the cars in the driveway for a minute, because we really ought to have this conversation. I said, okay, you have a VW Beetle over there. I'm about $5,000 into that, and I do all my own work. I bought a new motor for it for $450, and I'm still not any more than about $5,000. I traded away some work for some paint, and I fix other people's cars so that those things don't bear any financial impact on our family. And here I have another one, same thing right here. It's a little newer, but I'm about $4,000 into that, and I go, now let's look at that minivan right there. Actually, let's start with the truck. We got a truck over there. We bought that new. Who drove that truck? Well, mom did. Yeah, that truck was $16,000. That was your mom's vehicle. So I'm at 10 and she's at 16, and she drove that for about 5 or 6 years. Then you guys got driver's licenses and things, and we got her that van. And guess what that van was? $23,000. So let's do the math here. 23,000 plus 15, is it 10 equal that? So
How
if you want to talk
did they
about,
respond?
what's interesting is in that moment she listened, but they revert back to dad just mismanages our money.
Right.
And And even though
So
I
the
was
truth
paying
is
all
not,
their
the
bills
truth
through
isn't even the
college.
issue.
I'm sorry, say
Right?
that again?
The truth is not even the issue there.
No, no. Well, and again, it's what
Yeah.
probably happened was, I talked to Dad about this, and he said that your cars were most expensive. Oh, well, that's not a fact. He spent way more money on our cars without any receipts or anything like that. They make up the story, and they create a narrative about you to your children. And this narrative is, okay, you mismanage money, and they're looking for ways to go do that. And I could feel that all the way through college, because it was constantly a fight with her for money. And she's like acting like I'm misspending my cash when I just divorced and I'm trying to survive with the money I had and pay her college bills on top of that, and kind of an ingratitude in it. But they create this, they do all this to create this narrative. And the narrative is ultimately this: whatever the narcissist believes about you or wants to paint on you is given as a gift to your children in these situations. And they take these things on and begin to believe those things about you too. And my gut tells me, I think that narcissists are so insecure that the reason they're doing this, one, is to help their wounded or non-existent ego or self-esteem, and two is they know underneath it all that someday they're going to get left behind, and they are preparing at some maybe even unconscious level. A lot of therapists would say narcissists have serious abandonment issues, right? So
Oh,
at
yeah.
some level, consciously or subconsciously, I personally believe that these narcissists are grooming their children very young. They're taking sides, they're setting up teams because they know that one day they're going to need it, and they're going to take the kids with them, and they're planning all that. And for me personally, I didn't discover it till I told her I wanted a divorce, and it happened like this. She said, because I told her I wanted a divorce, she didn't necessarily argue. I think she was kind of deer in the headlights at the moment because she thought I'd never leave her or didn't have the courage to go do it. And then she said this. She said, I just want you to know some of your children will never speak to you again. And inside I went,
Oh my gosh.
oh my gosh, she's been talking about this to them. She'd already
Yeah.
prepared them. They knew at some level, they knew this was coming because mom had already been having those conversations, whether overtly or covertly, and preparing them for this. And they've already responded to her, and now it's coming back to me. We will never speak to him again. And basically that's happened with a couple of my kids.
Wow. So now with you said one of your kids is starting to come back. Can you talk about
Slowly,
how you
slowly
have
but
managed to
surely.
do this? Because I think this is something that a lot of people are really curious about. A lot
Yeah.
of people feel hopeless, especially with adult kids, where there's nothing you can do legally. You can't there's no parenting plan anymore. How did you con- start to make it better?
So there are a couple of things that I think I've done well. And let's be clear, I have 4 children. 2 of my kids do not talk to me. They just, one of them I wanted to talk to, and talk to him about the divorce and why I was divorcing. He refused to meet with me. My son, we still haven't had that conversation, and we've probably not had 3 sentences of conversation in 4 years. So he's out of the relationship with me. One of my other daughters came over for dinner once. It seemed to be a very good dinner, and she's been ghosting me ever since. Really not spoken with her either. So those
Probably
two,
because she got punished. Does she live
that's
with
it.
your
She
ex?
doesn't. She's on her own down about an hour away on the other side of town. So
Yeah.
it's not easy to see her. And I text her on on her birthday and holidays and things like that. But that's really kind of as far as it goes. And I do that with all my children.
Yeah.
Um, my oldest and I had a relationship up front, but again, is what I think happened.
Hmm.
Mom's got in her ear,
Yeah.
and she started accusing me in text form of all the things my ex was doing, and I flat out said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take this from you. And she was being pretty disrespectful to me and using me for things. I wanted me to go fix stuff around her house all the time. it wasn't a healthy relationship where I felt like there was actually concern for me. It was the kind of relationship where she would just use me like her mother. So
Mm-hmm.
it didn't feel, there's no, by this point in time, she's in her late 20s, there should be some mutuality to it, and there just wasn't. So I'd come down and I'd do it because I wanted to show her that I loved her and tried to build some relationship with her, and she started accusing me of this stuff, and basically said, "See you never," in a text. And I said, well, that would make me very unhappy. I'm not going to force my way into your life ever.
Yeah.
So if that's what you want, I'll honor your request and have. And she's been out of my life. But there's something important in that I think needs to be said. I will not tolerate their disrespect. I will not do that. That's not a healthy parent-child relationship in any kind of way. And again, I'm a parent first and a friend second. And disrespect that her mother has given her for me will not be tolerated in relationship. And if that means that we're out of relationship because that's who she wants to be with me, I'm sorry, but there's going to have to be a change of heart in some kind of way before we really connect. And as much as it grieves me, and it really does grieve me as a parent, I, a relationship of constant disrespect towards me is no relationship at all. So I'm and a relationship of using me just to go do things, or using me to just pay for things, is also not the kind of relationship I'm interested in for somebody who's an adult. We need to move beyond those kinds of things into adulthood. And even if mom is doing this kind of stuff, there are, I'm going to stand up for myself to them as well, because they're her flying monkeys. So my youngest, who I deem the most emotionally healthy of my children, was gone initially, and then kind of over the last couple of years re-engaged in relationship with me. And I've been trying to do some dinners with her and having some conversation with her over the years. I'm building trust with her. And I would say that trust, I think, is probably, and I hope I'm not misstating it, but I think that trust is good. And she's beginning to confide in me in some things that are upside down in the family at large. And all I'm going is, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't make that different for you.
Yeah.
I understand those kinds of things. And I refuse to throw anybody under the bus. But I want her to know I understand those kinds of things. Even places where she goes, I don't feel like I don't connect in my own family. It's like I don't have a family. And I go, wait a minute. Yes, you do. I'm your family. You can always talk to me. And I'm intentionally having conversations about how I love her as well, that my love is unconditional, that if you make a mistake, guess what? What I hope for with you is not pretending that you have to be something you're not, and you're not going to get excommunicated from the family with me. With me, I want honesty with you. And guess what? If it's a problem, we'll work it through together. You're not on your own, because that's what family does. So I'm redefining family, and gradually over a little time, I'm starting to see some of these changes. At the same time, it's at this point in time also muddled with, hey, will you do this for me? Hey, will you do that for me? Hey, will you do this for me? Hey, will you do that for me? And it doesn't feel so loving. But for the moment, I'm tolerating it to continue to be involved with her. And because I know that behind the scenes, she's getting these lessons and figuring this stuff out very, very slowly. And I'm hopeful that there will be a day where we can talk about this and she goes, oh my God, I get it. Now I know why this is happening. I think I mentioned last time that there's a story in the Bible, and I don't pretend to be preachy, and so this is will be the opposite of that here, but it's something that made sense to me. And it talks about the alienation, the abandonment of a child and a parent. And Jesus tells this story about the prodigal son, where the kid basically gets uppity and he says, Dad, tell you what, I want the cash you're going to give me when you die. I'd like to have that right now, by the way, because I want it and I'm out of here. And for whatever reason, the father gave it to him, which seems kind of ridiculous. But I think the father knew that he needed this lesson. So the kid goes off and takes the cash and squanders it on chicks and parties and all these other kinds of things you would think a lascivious 18 or 20-year-old might go do. And he finally hits rock bottom. He's out of cash and he's working at a pig farm. And it says he's so hungry that as he's feeding the pigs that he longed to eat what he's given to the pigs.
Mm-hmm.
And he has this moment, and it says, and then he came to his senses. And that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for my kids to come to their senses because they've been alienated from me for whatever reason, mom doing this or whatever. They're in this particular story, their own stupidity. But he needed the lesson and the father gave it to him. So absent of they come to their senses moment, I don't think there's much relationship to be had. And what's also fascinating is the father doesn't chase them so much.
Mm-hmm.
And he could. The guy left and he could chase him down, and instead he let life be their teacher. And as much as I hate that for them, I would love to be able to just go have the conversation and say, here's what happened, here's how to avoid this, and kind of teach them through conversation. I don't think this is something that can be taught through conversation.
No,
So,
just like with someone in an abusive relationship and their friends are saying, I'm so worried about them, I'm telling them how bad the person is. It doesn't work because the brain has been changed. There's trauma bonding.
Yep.
And then you don't want to isolate the person even more by making it like you're not accepting and how could they be so stupid.
Correct. So like with my daughter, this has helped me because it's like she's not come to my oldest, she's not come to her senses yet. She wants to continue to live in disrespect and using me and that kind of stuff. And that's not the kind of relationship I want. So in this story, the boy decides to come back and he says, I'm going to tell Dad, I'm just going to come to work for you. If I can come to work for you, that would be great because I know I'd be a little bit better off. And it says, basically as the boy walked back down the street, the dad was standing there waiting, essentially with open arms. Mm-hmm. And he receives him back into the family and loves on him again. And this is probably the hardest part, is waiting with open arms. When you are constantly being pounded on in some respect, to be waiting lovingly is just hard. And it's passive disrespect. It's ignoring you. It's whatever it might be that hurts you is taking place. And to stand in a place of waiting for them to kind of have that moment is hard. But that's my goal. I want to be waiting. I want to, when that moment comes, and I don't know when it's going to be, but I trust it's present. I will be waiting with open arms for my kids. But until then, I'm not chasing them down in their stupidity here. I'm not chasing them down. They can go do their little thing with their mother, and she can continue to do this. And I'm just hopeful they'll figure it out one day. And when they figure it out, I'll be waiting and look forward to being in a relationship again. Angie said it feels like a living death sometimes. It really does.
Yeah,
it really does. At 57 years old, this was not my plan. I'd wanted a very different kind of relationship with my children. I worked at that relationship with my children, and I don't have much to show for it right now because of what took place. But I'm hopeful. But that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to be a good parent and not just a good friend to my kid. I'm intentionally parenting her. I'm intentionally redefining who I am as a person. And the nice thing about these dinners is it's just me and her. Mm-hmm. There's nobody else to get in the way. And that's the beautiful thing about divorce is when you're married to a narcissist, you can't help but parent badly because the two of you are parenting together. Right. And it's
right. Good point.
It's an exercise in constant confusion. Well, he might love me, but does she love me? Wait a minute, she's using me over here. Wait, she's telling me this about him, and it's absolutely confusing for the kids. So you have to concede whether you're a good parent or not. When you're parenting with a narcissist in the same house, you guys together are parenting badly. You just are, because it takes one person to make it takes two people to make a good relationship and only one to make a bad one. So once you're out of the relationship, this stuff ends. It's just you and it's just them. And they may go back, and the narcissist may do a little back chatting again and try to redefine it again. But you have those moments of intimacy and of parent-child and of loving relationship. And if you can be that to them, I really am convinced love wins. And love is not just being a friend. Love is being a good parent. Even when your kids are adults, you don't ever give up that role. Parent first, friend second.
Yeah.
That's what
There's a
I'm trying
comment
to do.
here. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it, John?
I agree. Is that the one?
Yeah.
I agree how hard it is waiting. I had a similar situation with my daughter. I made the decision to help anyway. And now after a couple of years, she came around. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about hard subjects. It is and I don't see the bottom of it, but no, it is a slow process, but I will do what it takes. We love unconditionally. And yes, we do. The slow process thing, I was thinking about it this morning about a meme, and I just wanted to post a meme that said, karma is much slower than we'd like.
That's a good one.
Will not, I promise, it just will not fix itself as quickly as you would like. It just won't. Those people I've known over the years who are in relationship with a malignant narcissist, I will tell you, it's my experience that those kids come around more quickly, because you can spot a malignant narcissist across the room, and they are generally not good to their children. And the children, I think, figure that stuff out far more quickly. Or you may have a situation where the kids are even divided on teams. In a malignant narcissist, you might find some of the kids team victim and some of the kids team narcissist. But you don't usually see that with a covert, because the kids kind of haven't figured that stuff out. With a covert, I think it really does take time for them to sit back and go, what happened here? Now, if your kid also has narcissistic tendencies, they may not go do that. I don't expect all of my children to come back around. I hope they do, but that's not necessarily an expectation. And my ex has her claws in at least one of them really deep. So I'm all I can do is hope and pray that it happens, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in a time frame that you like. It's been 4.5 years since I separated. It's 4.5 years since I separated, and almost 4 since I divorced. And it's been this way since the separation. So this next upcoming year is 5 years of this nonsense. Which to me seems like forever, to be without them. So suffice to say, it's going to take longer than you think. There's a therapist I trust. He's forgotten more about narcissistic personality disorder than I'll probably ever know. And his words to me were, generally it takes 10 years. And there's always one child that kind of doesn't ever come back around. So I'm almost, I'm pushing 4, and this is where I am. I will. Interestingly enough, one other thought, Lisa. Lots of when you have narcissistic personality disorder going on in your home, there are lots of opinions about things, and people see memes on Instagram, and there are lots of different opinions about this stuff. There's only one piece of advice I got the whole way that was absolutely consistent, and it is, you be the good parent, you don't talk badly about your ex, and you will eventually win the day. And I've taken that to heart, and I've tried to go do that, and again, I'm waiting with open arms as soon as they're ready to come back. So I'm hopeful, but that's my advice on how to go win the day. And I do see things changing slowly. There are evidences of light at the tunnel, and perhaps it's not a train on the other side in my relationship with my kids. So that's how I'm doing it.
Well, thank you so much for showing hope. I mean, progress is progress, even if it's slow. That you're turning around like 18 years worth of grooming. with that
Oh
one
yeah.
child in particular.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. It's the most difficult thing, you'll probably ever go through with respect to narcissistic abuse. If the kids become flying monkeys, you divorce one and you gain the others, unfortunately. And it's like dealing with narcissism in them can
Yeah,
be really problematic, and you have to think of it that way when you're doing it. So,
yeah. So John, how can people find you? I
but
know
yeah.
on
Couple
Instagram, but
different ways on Instagram here. My nickname is Male Victims at Female Narcissists. If you'd like to follow me, we're talking about these kinds of things regularly. And let me say this too. Although my nickname is Male Victims of Female Narcissists, that doesn't mean I don't support women. Lisa knows, and everybody who's encountered me knows. You'll find most of my posts are gender neutral,
right.
because nobody, male, female, or other, should be subjected to this kind of stuff. I do try to shed a light and to support men, particularly because there aren't many of us out there, and males are just not heard so well when it comes to narcissistic abuse. I mean, heck, we have a hard time even assenting to the fact that we're abused.
Yeah.
So I'm intentionally trying to find and provide a safe space for those people. About 50% of my followers are women, for a couple of reasons. One, that those women fall into a couple different categories. Um, they're women who are watching a male being abused. So the
Mhm.
male, say, has gotten out of a relationship with a narcissistic wife. He's remarried, and this wife is watching the narcissist ex continue to try and mismanage
We
the
have a lot of those
relationship.
too.
So you see a lot of that. I also have a lot of moms who have sons who've married a narcissist, and are in a situation where they've been alienated from their own kid
Hmm.
by the narcissist that the son has married. Sisters who are watching brothers go through this, and then there's a group of people who are women who are dealing with female narcissists as well, and they also participate. So it's a safe space. I moderate religiously and litigiously, although quite honestly, I've never seen such kindness as I've seen on the interaction on my Instagram account. So those of you that interact there regularly, and Lisa's one of those people. Thank you so much for being so kind uh, and uplifting to the people who travel that space, because we're all healing together at the same time. So thank you so much for that. Also, male victims of female narcissists.com. There's a forum on there. I do some coaching as well. If somebody's interested in that, they can reach out to me too, and I'm happy to go reach back to them. So that's how to find me.
Yeah, great. Well, I love catching up with you, John.
Same.
Always
We'll
love
do this
talking
again soon,
with you.
and so it's a good, well, at least hear you.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe
Well,
Instagram
you'll
will be
see. I'm going to
kinder
post the
next
recording in
time.
a minute, and then you'll see faces
That'd
together.
be good. So blessings to you, my dear friend. And I wanted to say
Thanks.
this too. What a treasure to meet you. And in my life, generally speaking, the relationships have been live first and then have become digital, and it's always
Uh-huh.
kind of moved in that direction. And with you, it was kind of digital first and then moving into the live. And what a treasure to know you and to befriend you. And thank you so much for sharing this space and for helping people as well. I know that's your heart. And give Chris my best too. Put a big old bear hug on him for me.
Yes, same. He's here too. All right, so people are still saying, "What's your Instagram handle?" Male
Male
victims.
victims
Of,
at Female Narcissist is my Instagram handle. So
yes. All right. Thank you so much,
thank
John.
you. We'll see
All
you
right.
again
Take care.
soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.